קשה לתאר את הטלטלה שפקדה את עולם התקשורת, הפוליטיקה ופעילי זכויות האדם עם פרסום סדרת הכתבות של תומר גנון בכלכליסט על השימוש שעושה משטרת ישראל בתוכנת הריגול ההתקפי פגסוס מבית היוצר של NSO. תוכנה שיכולה לשאוב את תכולת הטלפון כולה, כולל התכתבויות מקודדות, בלי להותיר עקבות. ישראל הצטרפה לשורת מדינות שהרשויות שלהם רכשו ועשו שימוש בפגסוס, לא תמיד בהתאם לחוק. ראשי מדינה, נבחרי ציבור, אנשי אופוזיציה, פעילי זכויות אדם ועיתונאים בכל רחבי העולם היו קורבנות של התוכנה הזאת, כפי שנחשף בכמה כתבות ובתחקירים של ארגונים ללא כוונות רווח בעולם. לפני שנזמין את מנחת הפאנל והמשתתפים, נשמע שני אורחים מחול שהוקלטו במיוחד לכנס הזה. הראשון הוא העיתונאי ההונגרי סאבולדז פאניה, בראיון עם עיתונאית וואלה טל שלו. פאניה הוא עיתונאי בקבוצת תקשורת עצמאית של 180 עיתונאים, שחוקרת בין השאר שחיתויות בשדה הפוליטי בארצו ובמקומות אחרים. במאמר מוסגר נאמר שיש לו שורשים יהודיים והוא נכד לניצולת אושוויץ.
Hello, Saaboldzs Panya. I'm happy to meet you, happy to have you here for our conference.
Thanks for inviting me.
So you're a political reporter and investigative journalist. I have to say it's very exciting for me to meet you. And you were one of the 5 Hungarian journalists who was spied upon by Pegasus and a participant of the Pegasus project, which revealed that actually the surveillance program was used against over 180 journalists around the world. But I want to start from the basics. And when was the first time you found out you were targeted by Pegasus?
I think it was around March last year that I was approached by journalists working for the Süddeutsche Zeitung in Bavaria. First, they didn't tell that I was hacked. They just asked for my phone number and also for the phone number of some other Hungarian journalists and media company owners. They didn't tell why they needed these phone numbers, but of course later it became apparent that they were just double checking if those phone numbers match with this leaked database of more than 50,000 phone numbers that were selected as targets for Pegasus surveillance. So they approached me because I gave an interview in 2020 about the pandemic to Forbidden Stories, the Paris-based outlet that was researching the whole Pegasus surveillance story. And because they already had my phone number, when they run through their own contact lists to match with the leaked database to see if there's if there are any matches, my phone number was the first Hungarian number that they identified, and that's when they know exactly that there's a story to it, because a Hungarian journalist shouldn't be included in this list.
And how did you react the first time you were told? I mean, were you shocked? Were you afraid? Did you start thinking about were there any signs beforehand?
So it was like a process. So first they didn't tell me that my phone was hacked. They were just curious about certain things. They asked for the phone number. And then they didn't tell me anything. But by that time, you could really put together the pieces of the puzzle. Like, why do these German and French journalists need your phone number and the phone number of other Hungarian journalists? Why they are so secretive about it? Because they also told that we shouldn't really communicate on open channels, that we should establish a secure way of communicating. Because of that, it was quite obvious that there's some surveillance-related story going on. And then they asked me to let Amnesty International analyze my phone, do a forensic technical analysis of my phone, and the result came back positive. And this analysis has shown that my phone has been hacked for more than 7 months. And of course, when they told me, I freaked out. I was mostly worried about my sources, because back in those days I was working on some explosive stories. And I instantly thought that, fuck, the government can just identify my sources and maybe they can go after them or fire them or make their life harder. So it was quite shocking.
You immediately knew it was the government?
Yes, it was absolutely obvious. So there are other cases around Europe and around the world where Pegasus was used for espionage. A foreign country was spying on another one. In the case of Hungary, it was absolutely obvious that it was my own government. So I work as an investigative journalist for more than 8 years now. And I mostly focus on trying to find out what kind of foreign influences are there in Hungary, how are foreign countries corrupting the Hungarian elite and Viktor Orbán's government. I was mostly working on uncovering Russian influence in Hungary, Chinese influence, and also during this time I was also working on a story about Benjamin Netanyahu and Viktor Orbán's close relationship.
Eventually you find out that there are other Hungarian journalists on this list, and what kind of stories were they working on? Is it the same kind?
Yeah, so we identified at least 5 or 6 Hungarian journalists, including myself, in this leaked database. There was a colleague of mine, András Szabó, working for the same outlet called Direct 36. It's a small nonprofit. He was also working on Russian influence in Hungary. Then we had another journalist named Brigitta Csikász, who was working on a misuse of EU funds in Hungary, corruption in the judiciary, corruption among the police force. Basically, all the Hungarian journalists who were surveilled were working on stories that were sensitive to the government, either because we've shown that there's corruption, or because we've shown that they don't really care about the country's sovereignty, they don't care about national security, they let the Russians do whatever they want in the country.
Were you scared or proud when you discovered that they were surveyed by them? Because, you know, it's kind of a badge of honor to know that you're such a good journalist that the government wants to know what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, yeah, of course, to some extent, it's a badge of honor to be included in this very exclusive club. But you know, when I read about Pegasus and NSO Group, and that, you know, this company is marketing its tool, saying that this can only be used against the worst criminals on earth, terrorists, suspects of, I don't know, organized crime, drug lords, and I don't really fit to any of those brackets. So I also felt humiliated that, you know, my own government considers me such a threat to national security that they deploy like the most brutal cyber espionage tool against me.
How aware were you at all about all of this?
Yeah, that was a problem. So I was cautious. Cautious means I was using end-to-end encrypted messaging applications, and I thought that these are relatively safe, like Signal, like Telegram, like WhatsApp. When I communicated with sources, either in the government or other people, we were like organizing the meetings on Signal with disappearing messages and stuff like that. So it's pretty obvious that the one of the main reasons why they put Pegasus on my phone is because, you know, it can even hack into encrypted communication. Of course, they were already surveilling me with other tools, but obviously they noticed that they couldn't really get any meaningful information out of my phone because I'm using end-to-end encryption. So then they thought that, you know, I'm a good target for Pegasus.
The next step is actually when it kind of turns into a spy movie, right? Because you kind of enlist on this on the Pegasus project, and you join forces with a lot of journalists trying to find out and reveal. And tell me about the work on the Pegasus project.
So this was a very tense work. We had to like really keep everything in secret, have secure communications. Obviously, that was like one of the main concerns, that, you know, what if this collaboration of 17 outlets, more than 80 journalists from all around the world, what if the communications gets compromised? What if one of the governments is still spying on some of us? And I personally felt that that basically I'm a liability to this project because, you know, it has been proven that I was under surveillance previously. What if I'm under surveillance currently, and what if the whole project gets compromised? But fortunately, we were cautious enough, and we could work in silence. Basically, what we had to do first is try to identify who those phone numbers belong to. I worked on the Hungary story. So there are more than 300 Hungarian phone numbers in this leaked list.
Who was on the list behind journalists, besides journalists? Because you said there were like 5 or 6 journalists, so there were 295 other people.
Yeah, we identified like 5 or 6 journalists, 3 media company owners, some of their acquaintances. We also identified like not just journalists, but for example, like the ex-wife of a journalist. So we have like one journalist targeted through 3 phone numbers. We also identified more than 10 lawyers, including the most senior lawyer of the country, the head of Hungary's Bar Association, politicians from the opposition, also some mid-ranking government officials who had internal conflicts with their higher-ups. Also people from law enforcement, and we did find also criminals, like legit targets of Pegasus, and actually that was something that was like really puzzling to me, that we could see that Hungary is also using Pegasus in a legitimate way, but then they are also using it against political targets.
Who was the one who decided to A, buy Pegasus, and B, use it, and 3, who drafts the list? So how do you fill up those, those blanks?
Sure. We also talked to human sources, sources who worked with the Hungarian intelligence community previously. And one of these sources told me that the main reason why Hungary bought Pegasus from Israel is that Signal and other end-to-end encrypted applications became very popular in the country. There was already a paranoia that the government is surveilling us, so that's why we turned to these applications. That's when the government was like, okay, then we need to do something with this situation. That's when they bought Pegasus. We also identified interesting patterns, like for example, there was a historic visit by Benjamin Netanyahu to Hungary in 2017, and he came with a delegation of Israeli businessmen, and it was reported by our partner Haaretz that when Netanyahu came to Hungary, that was the exact date when there was a demo, or there was like a trial of Pegasus shown to the Hungarians, because that's the first entry of a Hungarian phone number to the system. So it really seems that Netanyahu brought this tool to show it to Viktor Orbán and to his government. And we also found another match in 2018 February. The national security advisor of Viktor Orbán traveled to Israel and met personally with Benjamin Netanyahu, and then with the advisor of Netanyahu. And that's the date when Hungary starts using Pegasus against real targets. So we could see that these meetings coincide with the use of Pegasus.
So how does the government react when you reveal that it's been using Pegasus, and how did they follow up on the revelation?
So first, of course, before publishing the story, we sent detailed questions. We wanted comments. They basically didn't give any substantial comment. They denied that they used Pegasus, and also accused us that we received this information about the spyware from the CIA or from the German intelligence, like accusing us of spying on them. After the story was published, it was a big scandal. They were not acknowledging nor denying. They were just trying to avoid questions. And then after some months, one of the senior governing party MPs made a mistake and made a public acknowledgement that yes, Hungary did buy Pegasus. And from that point, the government openly acknowledged that they used it, but they claim that there was no illegal surveillance, meaning that there was a surveillance permit for each of us, and that we were legitimate targets of surveillance because we pose a threat to Hungarian national security, or were in contact with people who pose that kind of threat, which is actually bullshit.
You say your government is labeling you as a threat to national security. On the other hand, everyone knows you've been tapped by Pegasus and been surveyed by Pegasus, so that might influence your sources. And I gotta ask, you yourself, have you become more paranoid?
I think I've been paranoid already before the whole Pegassus story. Actually, the Pegassus revelation had a positive effect because it showed me that this is not actual paranoia. I was right all the way, so I was not getting insane. I had reasons to think that I'm being surveilled. So it gave me a certain certainty. With sources, it was hard because it was quite clear to me that my government was not primarily interested in me, but through me they were trying to find out my sources. So they were actually trying to find out who are those people who am I in touch with, and who are those people who leak information to me, who leak documents, who have on background conversations with me. So I just need to be really cautious, and I just try to leave my phone at home whenever it's possible, or turn it off, or put it in a Faraday bag.
To sum up, how do you think that a journalist can look ahead, and how can he protect himself and specifically his sources in this kind of situation?
So I think the only thing one can do is just being as cautious as possible, doing everything possible to protect the sources. And if that means that I have to work 3 extra hours per day just to arrange a simple meeting, then I have to do that. It really slows down my work, but this is the only way of moving forward.
Thank you, Pania, for this discussion, this conversation, but also for your very important work.
Thank you for being interested, and good luck.